This is Tokyo, once a city of 6 million people. What has happened here was caused by a force which, up until a few days ago, was entirely beyond the scope of man's imagination. Tokyo, a smoldering memorial to the unknown. An unknown which at this very moment still prevails and could at any time lash out with its terrible destruction anywhere else in the world. There were once many people here who could have told of what they saw. Now there are only a few.
It can safely be assumed that 2 million years ago, this Brontosaurus and other ancient reptiles roamed the earth. It was known as the Jurassic Age. During this period, there was another species which we may call the intermediary animal, a cross between the land-living and the sea-living animals. Let us call this creature Godzilla, according to the legend of Oda Island. And judging from this photograph, this creature is over 400 feet tall.
How's everybody doing? This is Bill, the Kaiju King, from my collection room here in Greater Cincinnati. And in this video, I'm doing a review of the Gigantic Series X Plus Yuji Sakai Godzilla 1954. I personally think it's a very good figure, a great figure actually, and it is the quintessential Godzilla. It is the original Godzilla. I think it's a must-have for a collection, any size collection, any scale. You gotta have the original Godzilla in it. It's just tradition, history, and the beginning. I will bring the big guy forward right now. All right, everybody, here he is, the X Plus Gigantic Series Yuji Sakai Godzilla 1954. It's a very impressive figure. Very nicely done. I know some people have complained about some things on it. I know, particular to paint and such and so on. And I will go into my thoughts on this whole thing here momentarily. Quickly, as far as the movie's concerned, it is the original. We have no Godzilla designs, no Legendary Godzilla, no Shin Godzilla, no Godzilla Earth, no nothing, no Showa era, no Heisei era, no Millennium era. We have none of that without this. And without this probably succeeding as good as it did in the theaters in Japan. We don't have none of it without this, so that's just my personal opinion, but I'm pretty sure that it's that cut and dry as far as it would go. But I love the first movie. The movie has a very dark tone, especially the Japanese version, of course. The American version is Americanized, I mean, it just is. But the Japanese version is a very dark tone, very somber tone, very somber music in parts of it, and just sets a very dark and dreary tone to the film. But it's just the Godzilla's the manifestation of humanity's mistakes, and he is the destruction that comes from humanity's mistakes and the result of humanity's stupidity with power as far as weaponry and stuff goes. And he rises out of the sea to pummel Japan, Tokyo in particular, and they really can't handle him until they find out the secret of Dr. Serizawa has the weapon called the Oxygen Destroyer, which destroys and asphyxiates all oxygen in the water, and it asphyxiates or suffocates all living matter in that vicinity of the release of the weapon. So once he agreed to let them use it, he destroyed his records, and he went down to place the weapon to make sure it took care of Godzilla in the ocean. But he decided to sacrifice himself because he didn't want anyone to get their hands on his weapon. He had burned the records prior in the movie, so nobody could have those, but he figured he would get rid of himself too, so nobody could get the information from him. It's really cool, tragic really, that he did that, but he did it for his country and for the world, so he actually is a very big, huge hero in the movie, in my opinion, was what his sacrifice did and meant for not just Japan, but the world. But Godzilla in the film, I mean, it is a groundbreaking film. The effects are really good for that time, in my opinion. Of course, we got man in suit, but it's just the details of the effects and the sets with the buildings and everything. They just really did a good job. It was really, really impressive, in my opinion. But he really put a hurt on Tokyo when he rose, especially the second time, and just put a smackdown on Tokyo, and they were really pretty much at their end rope with trying to deal with him until Serizawa agreed to let them use the oxygen destroyer. And the movie's it really is good. And then, of course, you've got the love triangle in the film with Serizawa and the young lady and the other gentleman. It was an arranged marriage for her and Serizawa, but she actually likes Ogata, I believe is his name. She actually wants him instead of Serizawa. Emiko, her name is Emiko. She wants Ogata. Emiko wants Ogata instead of Serizawa. So I'm guessing in that day and age, affair or whatever would be forbidden in such a way, but they were it's kind of a crazy thing in that movie, in my opinion, for that time, but they really did well with it, I thought. The whole movie is very well laid out. Of course, Godzilla spawned from Kong, the original Kong, 1933. That is the movie that gave them the idea to make a giant monster movie, and so it is really cool that Godzilla spawned from the original 1933 King Kong. He was the inspiration for the creation of what we have now, the King of the Monsters, Godzilla. As far as this figure goes, its footprint is ridiculous. As you can see, his tail pretty much goes straight back. This one and the gigantic 95 are the worst footprints of any figures there has to be. The Burning Godzilla gigantic, his tail pretty much goes down, touches, and curls back up, but it's all straight back, exactly straight back. So this one in the 95, if you want to set it straight on the shelf like that, you're going to have a very deep shelf. I didn't measure this, but it has to be 20 plus inches from the tip of the tail to the front of the toenails. But it is a shelf hog in that regard, but I just set it catty-cornered on my shelf, and it works out good like that. But the tail is very nicely done. He has a shorter tail, a stalkier tail, more blunt end. That is just like the suit in the movie. The nice ridges on the tail are well defined. It's really good, I think, in my opinion. So nicely done. Really is all the way up. It's just very good and impressive detail on the tail ridges and the suit wrinkles in the tail too. Of course, the dorsal plates start back here, just little tiny ridges. They run up to his back, and then of course you've got the dorsal plates run up and down his back, 3 rows. And of course, this is where I think there's been a lot of contention with the figure, as far as the figure wise, that some people think the dorsal plates are too big, too long. I think it's just, I don't know, I think it's the angle in the movie, to me, my opinion. When you watch the film and you look at the angles, certain angles, I think if you look at him straight side on like this, I think they look about right, in my opinion. I think sometimes they look like they're too far spaced out as well, but I think when you look at it like this, from side view, it looks pretty accurate to me. That's just my opinion. But as far as the detailing of them, I mean, all of them are very closely shaped to the plates he has on his back in the film. And of course, we've got the darker inner, darker gray, blackish with the nice bump texture on each plate. All the inners are dark gray, blackish. Then the outer tips are all the lighter gray. And the whole figure is black and gray tone. And I don't know if that's another complaint from people, but personally, it's perfect. And I think I've heard made mention that the paint job is bland. In my opinion, I look at it like it's depicting the color, the black and white of the movie. The whole figure is depicting the black and white of the movie. And that's just where I'm at with it. I'm okay with it. I think it looks good. Sometimes I do think the dorsal plates look a little off, especially the big middle row. But and then when I look at it, I watch the movie and I'm like, no, that looks about right. So it's just kind of weird. As far as the rest of the figure, the toes, the feet have 3 toes, and then the side claw on the back here, they're all very nicely done. Big, nice toenails, fingers, 4 fingers, 3 fingers, and kind of like a thumb. And right here between his thumb and the 3 fingers, there is a webbing, and that is actually on the suit in the movie. I remember when he goes to comes ashore to attack Japan, and he's going to the towers, up to the power towers to confront that. You can see that webbing in between the thumb and the fingers. So that's really cool. And these fingers and the spacing of the thumb from the 3 fingers, it's right on with the movie, in my opinion. But the nails, claws, and toenails, and the claw nails, they are very nicely done. They're lighter gray than the actual skin tone of the suit, but they are gray in color. As far as the legs, the legs, the midsection, the arms, it is incredible suit wrinkling and suit identification, in my opinion. It's just amazing down here at the feet. There's nice wrinkles around from the ankles up, wrinkles in the knee areas, wrinkles on the legs and the upper thigh area on both legs. In the midsection, there's some nice wrinkling of the suit you can see. It's just very nicely done. Nice definition of wrinkles. And then up here in the arms, where he's got his arms cocked like that, there's a nice wrinkle in the bend, wrinkle up in the shoulder area, wrinkle up here in the upper arm shoulder area. It's just very incredibly done. Wrinkles on the side of the body here, right here. It indicates the suit. I mean, X Plus is known for suit accuracy figures, and to me this screams the 1954 Godzilla suit. It's just very, very nicely done. I think the proportions are right on it, in my opinion. He wasn't the biggest and chunkiest, waist down like some of them, like the 62 or Shin or the 95. He wasn't big and chunky like those are, but I think his proportions are good on this figure. He's pretty tall too. He's a pretty tall figure. As far as his head goes, nicely done definition on the head and the face, and of course he has the 2 fangs protruding in the front of the mouth, just like in the film. All his teeth are individually sculpted in there. Nicely done with that, I would say, in my opinion. All the teeth are gray, of course. Everything on this figure is gray and black, except for the white of the pupils, white of the eyes. And but his side His side profile was nicely done. If you look at him from the side, he's looking down. His black pupils are on the side of his eye, of both sides. He's looking down. They're basically right in the side. So if you look at this figure head straight on, he looks like he has just white eyes. It's pretty wicked looking, actually. Really crazy looking that he looks like that. But because his black pupils are out to the side, and they're just straight black pupils with white for the eye, and they're looking kind of down. But if you look at that thing dead straight on, it really does look kind of crazy. But it's nicely done. Nice texture in this facial area and stuff. The eyebrow is smooth, and that is just like the suit. I noticed that in the movie when I rewatched it today. That's all smooth. Goes down to the bridge of the nose, and it's all smooth. And that is like that in the movie. Nice pointy ears, just like the suit had in the film. He's a really nicely done figure, I would say. As far as his whole skin texture, it's all nicely done with the tree bark skin and the charcoal gray coloring. Like I said, there's no color on this figure at all. It's all black and gray and the white of the eyes, and that's it. No color. But like I said, in my opinion, that is because of the movie being black and white. They're portraying it as it was in black and white, which is pretty cool. And I think it's well done. If I was to rate this figure out of 10, I would give it a 9 out of 10 probably, to be honest. I mean, I think it's pretty daggone good. I just feel like you gotta have an original Godzilla in your collection. If you start collecting and getting into Godzilla collecting, you gotta have an original Godzilla. It's just, to me, it's a requirement of the whole deal to have an original Godzilla in your collection. I will go on to some closing thoughts here momentarily, and I will be right back. All right, everybody, I'm back. My closing thoughts on this figure and the movie. My closing thoughts on the movie, it is the original. It is one of the best of the whole series. It is the original. It's what started this plus 30 movies in 65 years. It's what gave us so many epic moments. It's going to give us our epic rematch next year with Godzilla vs. Kong. But we have none of this, without the success of this and the dedication of everyone, the director, Mr. Honda, Mr. Surabaya, the special effects wizard, and of course Haru Nakajima for his excellent portrayal of the in the suit. Without him, it would really be nothing. He was Godzilla and always will be Godzilla, and we all loved him for it. I got the pleasure to meet him in 2017, right a few months before he died in Indianapolis, and it was a pleasure and an honor, and I'll always treasure that. As far as this line, the X Plus line, I think I had this number 5 on my X Plus Gigantic Series rankings. He was in the top 5. I mean, I gotta have him in there just because he is that influential to kaiju, every form of kaiju there's been. It's just he is the reason we have so many kaiju movies and spin-offs and whatever. You know, I think, in my opinion, Gamera, because of the popularity of the Godzilla movies, they created Gamera, and that got, 11 movies, I think, to date. So that became a pretty popular series, obviously. But I think that all came from Godzilla. So he is the king of the monsters. And this is an excellent figure, and the whole X Plus Gigantic series are all excellent. If I had to say my least favorite, it would probably be the Gigantic 99 2000, least favorite in that line. I don't know, I like it, but I wish that one in particular was more suit accurate than it is. It's pretty stylized. But I think they ain't that the maquette. I think that was the maquette version of the 2000, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the whole line is tremendously well done, in my opinion. They're all wonderful. I love them all. I wouldn't trade them for anything, and they're really, really nicely done figures. They are expensive, of course, but I wouldn't trade them for nothing. I wouldn't take nothing for them. They're a pleasure to come down into my collection room and look at every day, and I love them. I will go to a closeout on my video. My closeout today will actually be just some size comparison shots of this guy with some other Gigantics that have been reissued, not the ones that haven't. Like this hasn't been reissued. The 89 hasn't been reissued. Shin hasn't been reissued, and the 64 hasn't been reissued. So I took some comparison shots with a few of my reissued Gigantics and with one custom of my Gigantics. I will have that at the end of my video here on the rundown. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This is Phil, the Kaiju King, from my collection room in Greater Cincinnati. Y'all have a wonderful Kaiju-filled day.
Can you hear me okay, George?
Now let's have it, Steve. What about this monster story of yours?
Well, it's big and terrible. More frightening than I ever thought possible.
You realize your story's front page all over the country. We want to know what's being done about this monster.
Well, here's your headline. Security decides to use depth bomb on Godzilla.
Well, that's fine. But how can they use depth bombs to get something they can't even see?
Same way they look for a submarine. Sonar. George, here in Tokyo, time has been turned back 2 million years. This is my report as it happens. A prehistoric monster the Japanese call Godzilla has just walked out of Tokyo Bay. He's as tall as a 30-story building. And now he's making his way toward the city's main line of defense. 300,000 volts of electricity strung around the city as a barrier. A barrier against Godzilla.